Alright, now let's look at the factor theorem. The factor theorem is a really cool piece of information. It's actually a very simple concept. Most people get it confused for some very strange reason. The factor theorem says that if x minus a is a factor, then when you plug a into your function, you will get 0. Well, very simple. So, how would I solve this for x? Well, that's easy. We set it equal to 0, remember? Set it equal to 0, and so I get x equals to 1. So the question is, if I plug in 1 everywhere there's an x, will I get it equal to 0? Now, obviously, we're going to use the calculator for this. So it's 1 to the 5th, and then you'd have a 1 to the 4th, a 1 cubed, right? A 1 squared, minus a 1, minus 1. Now, the interesting part here, 1 to any power is just 1. So we can simplify this to be negative 4 minus 4 plus 1 minus 1 minus 1. Well, the plus 1s and the minus 1s all cancel. Negative 4 and negative 4 equals negative 8. So that means that x minus 1 is not a factor. Alright? So anytime we have an odd number of terms and we can't do grouping, we'll use a guess and check method. And this is the way you actually check it. So now let's double check. We got x plus 1 is a factor when we did the grouping. Let's double check and make sure. So I'm going to set that equal to 0 and solve. I get x equals to negative 1. So let's plug that in. Let me write down the equation first so we can plug it in correctly. Plus x cubed plus x squared minus x minus 1. Okay? So I have negative 4 times a negative 1 to the 5th power. Minus 4 times negative 1 to the 4th plus a negative 1 cubed plus a negative 1 squared minus a negative 1 minus 1. Now the cool part is whenever you have a negative 1 or a negative anything that's squared, the negatives will cancel out. So this will become a positive 1 because it's an even power. The 4 also becomes a positive 1. Anything that's an odd power becomes a negative 1. Okay? So negative 4 times negative 1 gives me positive 4. Negative 4 times positive 1 gives me negative 4. This was just a negative 1. The negative 1 squared is a positive 1. Negative times a negative is a positive. And then I have a minus 1 at the end. Okay? So, 4 minus 4, well that's 0. Negative 1 and 1, well that's 0. And then positive 1, negative 1 is also 0. So it checks out. So x plus 1 is a factor. That means there is a root or a solution at x equals negative 1.